Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of the Rise and Fall series. Today we'll be looking at the Portland Trailblazers, also known as the Portland Jailblazers era, which I'm going to roughly call 1998 to 2004. If you haven't seen any of the installments of this series before, go check out the playlist on my channel. I like to highlight why certain contenders rose to be a contender, how they plateaued at that stage, and then why they ultimately started falling apart. I think it's really interesting to watch how the teams are built and how they change and to sort of chronicle their journey. And so today we're going to be looking at the Portland Jailblazers, I guess we'd say. And this on the left side of the screen is a book that they had written about them by, I guess, Carrie Eggers. And so if you're interested in that, check it out. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first season of the Jailblazers era I'm calling is 98 to 99. Just a few quick things to get out of the way. First, at the top, you'll see regular season statistics or figures regarding the team as far as like record, seed, playoff outcome, and offense and defensive rating. And then below on the left, you'll see regular season stats. On the right, playoff stats for individuals. I've highlighted games played, minutes played per game, shots, and field goal percentage. Same for three pointers and free throws. Then total rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, points. So this first season for the Jailblazers, as far as being major contenders, they were really led by a combination of Rasheed Wallace, Isaiah Ryder, and Damon Stoudemire were their main guys, along with Sabonis as well, Arvydas Sabonis. Pretty good team, as you can see, very good both offensively and defensively. Uh, Scoring was very balanced. When you look, they had seven different guys scoring eight or more points per game, and five or more guys in double digits. And if you really want to get into in the playoffs why they didn't do super great, to me, I look at probably Damon Stoudemire being pretty inefficient of a scorer, and also Arvydas Sabonis, his scoring percentages dropped to below 40% from the field, and Jim Jackson, who was a pretty good sixth man, his scoring efficiency dropped from 41% from the field during the regular season to 36%. And really, what I think a challenge of this team was that they didn't have like one singular major scorer. Like as you can see, Rasheed in the regular season was getting less than 13 points per game, but he was like in essence their best scorer on the team, you'd say. So they really just needed a more consistent first option, I'd say. Was their big fault this year, but defensively very strong between Wallace and Brian Grant and the rest of the team, and yeah, really their major issue was just needing a more consistent option. Fast forward to the next season, 99 to 2000, and we had some major shakeups here. The Blazers brought in Scottie Pippen to be the locker room leader. They traded Isaiah Ryder and they traded Jim Jackson in exchange for Steve Smith from Atlanta, who was a bit of a better scorer than either of those two guys. And as you can see, he averaged 15 points per game on better efficiency at about 47% from the field. That's better than either of those two guys that he got traded for. The team had similar success. So the last season, if you adjust their wins to a not lockout season, they had 57 wins. This year they had 59. They were the third seed. They lost in the Western Conference Finals in Game 7 to the Lakers. And if you know anything about this team and its history, a lot of people thought that they actually should have won that series, but they really just choked terribly down the stretch. And if it weren't for like a couple of bad possessions, they would have won that and maybe gone on to win the finals. But so goes history. Great offense, great defense. Scottie Pippen was really bringing it on both ends of the court. Same with Steve Smith and Rasheed Wallace. This year, some notable pieces that they brought in were like Greg Anthony and Detlef Schrempf. They were really good forces off the bench, and you'll see again every starter in double digit scoring, so they were doing pretty well there. Rasheed took a step forward, going from 12 points a game to 16, and from 5 rebounds a game to 7. Um, Scotty was very well rounded for them, um, averaging, let's see here, 15, 6, or 12, 6, and 5, excuse me. If you look at the playoffs of who struggled or who really succeeded, I think the person that really sticks out as struggling the most was Scotty, going from 45% from the field to 42, so a bit of a drop off there. Arvydas Sabonis went from 51% from the field roughly to 45, so you know, not necessarily terrible drop offs, but just tiny things where you kind of pick up on like them being one of the smaller pieces to why this team failed in the playoffs. In the playoffs, you had Rashid bump up his scoring average by 2 points. Same with Steve Smith bumping it up by 2 points. And they actually still kind of struggled from the same thing that they struggled from the regular season. As you'll see in the regular season, you had Rashid as the leading scorer, but as far as shots per game, you had four different guys shooting about 11, between 11 and 13 shots per game, and a fifth guy shooting 9 shots per game. So you didn't really have like a distinct pecking order, and it kind of could be anybody's night on any given night. So for that reason, it made it harder for this team to have a distinct like go-to option per se. So I think again that was a big issue with them like down the stretch of games is they didn't really know like should we be posting up Rashid? Should we be giving it to Scotty on the wing? Should we be giving it to Steve Smith on the wing? Should we be letting Arvidas dominate from high post? Should we be letting Damon Stoudemire ISO from the top of the key? They didn't really know what their thing down the stretch should be, their game plan, I guess you'd say. Because they didn't have like that one standout above and beyond all-star to put out front of this team. It was kind of a collective of guys who were like better than average starters, but not all stars kind of thing. Going into the next season, they had still a pretty good team, seventh in offense and ninth in defense in the league. I'd say the big difference on this team was that, uh, let's see here. You look and you say, well, Arvydas Sabonis took a bit of a step back, playing less minutes per game, going from about 30 to about a little over 20. Um, Guys like Bonzi Wells and Dale Davis came in, and Bonzi had been on the team the previous year, but hadn't played as significant of a part. But this year he did play a bigger part, averaging 13 points per game. Steve Smith, Sabonis, or excuse me, Steve Smith, Stoudemire, Pippen, Rashid, all basically had duplicated seasons from the year before. But Brian Grant wasn't really a part of this team anymore, and Detlef Schrempf had taken a step back as far as just not getting worse, but just becoming older, so he's less effective. In the playoffs, they actually had a pretty short rotation of guys that they felt reliable about. And they didn't actually have Bonzi Wells, which made a pretty big difference considering he was their uh, fourth leading scorer, giving them 14 or 13 points per game. That was a pretty big scoring presence to have missing. Um, Rashid played pretty poorly as far as efficiency in the playoffs. He shot 37% from the field, down from 50% during the regular season. And that's pretty bad when he's your leading scorer. Um, the rest played fine, like Steve Smith, Scotty, and Stoudemire, and Sabonis, whose minutes actually went up a ton. And I think that's because Dale Davis didn't really play in the playoffs, so they were missing more low post presence, so they had to have Sabonis step up big time. And yeah, so I think that this team was still pretty good. Just the reason that they struggled is their best dude in the playoffs, Rashid, was matched up against Shaq and Horace Grant in the first round, who were pretty intimidating defensive matchups, and his efficiency really dropped as a result, and the rest of the team kind of followed suit and struggled as a result of that. Going into 2002, this team again has basically the same record, down from 50 wins to 49. Still really good on offense, slipping a bit more on defense. You got most of the main parts of the team left, except no more Sabonis. So Sabonis was gone at this point, and Detlef Schrempf was gone at this point. Same with some of those other fringe kind of role players like Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony. Those guys were gone now. And so you were left with basically that core of Rashid, Stoudemire, Pippen, and Bonzi Wells. This was the core of the team now. Steve Smith had also left for the Spurs at this point. So those were your main four guys. Bonzi had probably his best season, averaging 17 a game. Rashid played pretty well still, averaging 19 and 8. Um, Stoudemire was slowing down, but still impactful. And then Damon Stoudemire um, gave another pretty normal season for himself. And then the big difference was you had these two role players come in, Derek Anderson and Ruben Patterson, who were pretty good role players for the team. Ruben Patterson famously called himself the Kobe stopper, but as you can see, they lost the Lakers in a sweep in the first round, so he must not have done that well at stopping him. Going into the playoffs again, Rashid's efficiency drops tremendously, going from around 47% from the field to 41. Bonzi Wells goes from shooting 47% from the field in the regular season down to 37, which is a tremendous drop off. Also goes from averaging 17 to averaging 12. Scotty actually plays really well for himself, averaging 16 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists on pretty good efficiency. Damon Stoudemire shoots less than 23% from the field in the playoffs. So he played awful. Like just he between him and Bonzi Wells, they were pretty much sunk. And really, I just credit this to the Lakers defense being really good. But you can really go down the line and see, Dale Davis, who's a guy who shoots normally only in the paint. He shot 27% from the field in this series. And Ruben Patterson shot 33% from the field. So basically, the Lakers just shut them down as a whole, and the Blazers really struggled against that really good defense. Going into 2002 to 2003, they keep up their same level of play, still pretty good. 50 wins, bouncing up one more win. And again, they were the sixth seed for, I believe, the third straight year. Or I guess in 2001, they were the seventh, but second straight year at least. Um, Again, similar main core of Stoudemire, Wallace, Bonzi Wells, and Pippen, with the complementary pieces of Ruben Patterson, Dale Davis, and Derek Anderson. And then you had Sabonis barely even playing. He had come back and played more, but he was basically just a backup center. And then Zach Randolph coming on as a youngster as a backup power forward. And yeah, you had pretty good seasons from Bonzi and Rashid again with good supporting pieces around that. A big difference, and I've pictured him top right, is that Derek Anderson missed the playoffs, and he was their third leading scorer, as you can see, giving them 14 points per game. So that really hurt them in the first round against Dallas. Then again, Bonzi, his efficiency dropped from 44% to less than 40%. Um, Beyond that, you had Scotty play pretty underwhelming, averaging less than 6 points per game during that first playoff series, and you had him miss 3 games in the series. You had Dale Davis miss a game. You had Arvydas Sabonis miss a game. Not like those were like the super critical pieces at that point, but they just are the little things that in a close series like this first round against Dallas, they can hurt a team. So yeah, between a few injuries and then also the drop in efficiency of a volume scorer like Bonzi Wells, that ended up really hurting the team against Dallas. And then 03 to 04. This is the first season in which the Blazers don't make the playoffs during this video. They finish at 41 on 41. Still a pretty good offense, but the defense is basically non-existent. You get Rasheed Wallace missing about half the season, which really hurt them. Derek Anderson missing over 30 games, which really hurt them. Jeff McGinnis, who they brought in as a backup, or actually, they brought him in to be, I guess, not a backup point guard, but like a rotation point guard, and he missed more than half the season. Theo Ratliff, who was like their starting center, as you can see, missed 50 games. Bonzi Wells missed all but about 13 games, so he basically missed a whole season. Darius Miles, who they thought was going to be really good, missed half the year. Sharif Abdur-Rahim. Oh, actually, no, I should be clear. Rasheed Wallace got traded, and they got Sharif Abdur-Rahim and Theo Ratliff for him. So those two didn't miss seasons. They actually got traded. So that's an inaccuracy on my part. So yeah, Theo and Sharif did not miss time with injury. They were traded for Rasheed Wallace. But still, between Derek Anderson, Jeff McGinnis, and Bonzi Wells missing basically the whole year, and Darius Miles missing half the season, they really struggled quite a bit. This is the year that, with all these injuries, Zach Randolph really broke out, though, averaging, as you can see, 20 and 10. Damon Stoudemire still put up his regular numbers. Pretty much everybody played fine, but just between the combination of injuries of Bonzi and Derek Anderson and Jeff McGinnis, they really struggled quite a bit this year. And Darius Miles, I should add too, because he was having a really good year for himself. And there you have it, guys. That's the story of the Portland Jailblazers. After this season, they kind of fell off for about 2, 3 years and weren't really a playoff contender anymore. Zach Randolph left in free agency. By this time, Scottie Pippen was gone. Bonzi Wells left shortly afterwards, I believe a season or two afterwards. Darius Miles was traded. Um, Theo Ratliff basically became a journeyman after this season. And yeah, this era was sort of done at this point then. So if I had to sum up why this team rose, it was because they had a bunch of really versatile players who were good on offense and on defense, so they could kind of lock it down on both ends of the court. Why, when they got to that peak of their performance, like a 59 win team in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, what was really like the one thing that kind of held them back? And, Scottie Pippen himself has said this before, so has Steve Smith. They never really had like that one true number one option. You could kind of say that Rashid was that during that season, but that particular season in Game 7 of Western Conference Finals, they didn't really have that distinct number one option. Rashid more became that as he uh, came into his prime in the subsequent seasons, and like Scotty and Steve Smith fell out of their primes in the following seasons. But for those particular 2 years, 99 and 2000, where they were like the major contenders, they just never had that like true number one. And then why they started falling apart, I think it's really that, when they were this major contender, you had guys like Steve Smith, who was like 33. Scottie Pippen was like 36 or 35 at the time when they were having these runs. When actually, I guess I should be clear. He was, I think, 31 or 32 when he got there, but by the time he left the team, he was like 36 or 37. Same sort of story with like Arvydas Sabonis, um, Brian Grant, Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, all key players on this team who were quite a bit older when they came to the team during this run. So yeah, a lot of the key pieces on this team really just aged out, and then like this last season, injuries just really bit them. And they had a lot of players who were very high volume scorers who scored inefficiently, and that really bites you in the playoffs because defense is locked down a lot more, and your scoring options become way less efficient. So I guess between why they failed, it was they had a pretty old core to begin with who kind of aged out of being relevant players, and then they had a lot of high volume inefficient scorers who really struggled with lockdown playoff defense. And then this last season, where it really came off, is because they had a ton of injuries that slowed them down. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out the others if you're interested, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.